Look around any room and find the most dangerous person, not the loudest, not the most aggressive, not the one making demands or throwing words like weapons. The most dangerous person is the one in the corner, watching, listening, saying absolutely nothing, because that person has mastered something. Most people will spend their entire lives never understanding the power of no response. And today, we are going to teach you exactly how to wield it. Stay until the end, because what you learn here will permanently change how every person in your life relates to you. The silent commander of your own mind. Drop this in the comments if you are ready. I am the commander of my own mind. Subscribe to Dark Stoic and watch Become Dangerously Smart next, because the mind you are building is only just beginning. Not because they are ungrateful, not because they do not feel the warmth of being seen, but because they have built an internal standard that does not require external confirmation to remain standing, and a person whose self-assessment does not fluctuate based on whether praise is arriving or not. That person cannot be manipulated through flattery, cannot be led by the promise of someone thinking well of them, cannot be steered by the withdrawal of approval they never needed in the first place. They are, in the most precise sense, free. The seventh lesson of the silent commander, the one that holds all the others, is simply this: silence is not the absence of power. Silence is power, the most complete, the most ancient, the most unassailable form of power available to any human being. The power of a mind that has chosen what it will and will not give its energy to. The power of a presence that communicates without a single word, that it cannot be moved without its own permission. The power of someone who has understood something that most people spend their entire lives never grasping, that the war for your peace is won or lost in the space between stimulus and response, in the gap, in the silence, in the 3 seconds before you speak, when you decide, consciously, deliberately, completely, who you are going to be in this moment and who you are not. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The silence that stands between you and your reaction is not an obstacle to your power. It is your power. Practice it in the smallest moments first, the minor irritations, the daily provocations, the moments when the old program wants to run, and you choose to pause, to wait, to let the silence do what words cannot. And as the practice deepens, as the gap becomes wider and more natural and more completely yours, you will become something that very few people in the history of human interaction have ever been. The third situation is the emotional bait. Someone is trying to trigger you, trying to pull you into their chaos, into their anger, into their drama. They need your emotional participation to feel the power they are seeking, and you give them a blank stare or 2 words, "I see," and nothing more. No warmth, no cold, no signal of any kind that their attempt has registered as significant enough to warrant a real response. This is what psychologists call starving the drama. Toxic behavior, manipulative behavior, is, at its core, a bid for emotional response, for engagement, for proof that the person doing the manipulating has power over the internal state of their target. And when you provide that emotional food, when you get angry, defensive, hurt, or even visibly unmoved, in a way that shows you are working hard not to be moved, you are feeding the behavior, confirming it is worth continuing. But when you genuinely do not engage, When your response is so neutral, so quiet, so completely absent of the emotional content they were looking for, something remarkable happens. The behavior loses its entire point. There is no reward anymore, no confirmation that it is working, no indication that it even registers, and behaviors with no reward do not continue forever. They die quietly in the absence of your reaction. The fourth situation is the praise trap. Someone is flattering you, building you up, telling you how impressive you are, how right you were, how no one else could have handled it so well. And most people, even very disciplined people, open up to this because it feels good, because the same need for validation that makes people reactive to insults also makes them receptive to flattery. And the person who controls the source of that feeling, who can give it or withhold it, has found a lever inside you that costs them nothing to use repeatedly. The silent commander meets praise the same way. They meet an insult with a slight nod, a brief, neutral acknowledgement that says, "I heard you," and then they continue, but they carry no weight in it. You are not a threat. You are not even an inconvenience. You are simply a person who said something, and the people who witness this, the ones who were watching to see how you would respond, learn something about you in that moment that will permanently affect how they approach you in every future interaction. The second situation is the negotiation. An offer has been made. A position has been stated. The other person is waiting for your response, and you say nothing. The silence that follows an offer in a negotiation is one of the most underestimated weapons available to anyone who has learned to be comfortable in it, because the other person is not comfortable in it at all. The prediction has failed. They do not know what you are thinking. They do not know if the offer was too low, too high, insulting, or close enough to close. And the uncertainty, the genuine not knowing, produces an urgency to resolve it, an urgency that they almost always act on. Before you do, they will often offer more. They will explain why their position is actually more flexible than they indicated. They will reveal something about their bottom line that they had every intention of keeping hidden. All of it volunteered, because the silence was more uncomfortable for them than keeping their advantage was valuable. Julius Caesar understood this when he was captured by pirates as a young man. Before he was Caesar, before he was anything, he was presented with their terms for his ransom, and he laughed. He said the amount was too low, and then he said nothing further. He waited. He wrote poetry. He slept when he wanted to sleep. He was completely, absolutely, unhurriedly comfortable in a situation that would have broken most people. And when he was finally released, true to the silence and the stillness he had maintained throughout, he returned and executed every one of them, exactly as he had calmly promised. No rage, no drama, just the cold, quiet follow-through of a man who had never, for a single moment, lost his composure or his power. Now let us talk about 4 specific situations where silence is not just powerful, it is the only weapon worth carrying. The first situation is the direct insult. Someone says something designed to diminish you, to reduce you, to produce in you the defensive reaction that confirms their power over your emotional state. Most people respond instantly. They defend. They explain. They argue back. And in doing any of these things, however skillfully, however convincingly, they have already lost, because they have confirmed that the insult landed, that it found the target it was aimed at, that this person, whoever delivered it, has the ability to alter your internal state by simply choosing the right words. The silent commander does something different. When the insult arrives, they hold steady eye contact for exactly 3 seconds. Not aggressive, not soft, steady, cold, completely undisturbed. And then they look away, not dramatically, not with a visible display of indifference, simply away, as if something more interesting has just occurred to them, and they continue exactly as they were, without adjusting, without explaining, without giving any indication that they noticed anything worth noticing. What this communicates in those 3 seconds of steady, cold, undisturbed eye contact is something that no argument and no counter-insult could ever achieve. It communicates, your words exist in my world. The person who stays quiet after a difficult statement is made in a meeting, while everyone else rushes to fill the silence with their discomfort. That person is collecting everything they need, while giving away nothing. The negotiator who makes an offer and then simply waits while the other side becomes increasingly uncomfortable with the silence and starts to move toward a better deal. That person understands something fundamental about how pressure works. Silence does not just hold pressure, it generates pressure. And the person who is comfortable in silence, who genuinely, completely, without performance, has no need to fill it, is always applying pressure without ever raising their voice. Epictetus taught his students a practice that sounds almost too simple to be as powerful as it is. Before you respond to anything, count to 10, not as a calming technique, as a discipline, as the daily practice of building the gap between stimulus and response into a physical habit of the body, so that over time, through repetition, through the small daily acts of choosing silence, where reaction used to live, the gap becomes wider, more natural, more completely yours. He called this the discipline of assent, the practice of not giving automatic agreement to the first impression that arrives in your mind, of examining it, of choosing whether to act on it, rather than simply being pulled by it. And the person who has developed this discipline, who has practiced it long enough and consistently enough that it has become the natural rhythm of how they move through the world, is experiencing every interaction from a place that most people never reach, the place of genuine choice, not reaction. Choice. And choice is power. Total, absolute power. Now let us go into the mechanics, the specific psychology of why silence works at the neurological level in ways that words can never match. The human brain is a prediction machine. From the moment you enter any interaction, the other person's brain is running a continuous, unconscious program. It is predicting your response, building a model of you based on every previous reaction you have given, and it is expecting confirmation. When you provide that confirmation, when you react exactly as expected, the other person's brain experiences a small reward. Prediction confirmed. Model accurate. I understand this person. I can navigate them. I have some degree of control over what happens here. But when you do not react, when the expected response simply does not arrive, the prediction fails. And a failed prediction produces a very specific and very uncomfortable neurological state: confusion, anxiety, the urgent need to restore the sense of predictability that just disappeared. And in that uncomfortable state, in that desperate scrambling to understand what is happening, people reveal themselves completely. They over-explain. They backtrack. They make concessions they had no intention of making. They volunteer information they had planned to withhold. They show you exactly who they are, and exactly what they want, in the most unguarded, most revealing way possible, because they are no longer managing their impression. They are trying to restore their sense of control. And you, standing in your silence, watching with complete composure, have everything, while they have nothing left to hide behind. This is not theoretical. This is happening in rooms around you every day. Marcus Aurelius understood this at the deepest possible level. He ruled an empire of millions. He was surrounded every day by people who wanted something from him, senators who tested his patience, generals who questioned his decisions, enemies who waited for any sign of weakness. And he wrote, in the private pages, never meant for anyone else to read, words that have survived 2,000 years, because of how precisely they capture this truth. You have power over your mind, not outside events, not other people's words, not the provocations designed to make you abandon your own interior, your mind, only your mind. And the person who has genuinely claimed that power, who has built genuine dominion over their own response, is the most psychologically dangerous person in any room they choose to enter, not because of what they do, because of what they refuse to do. Look around any room and find the most dangerous person, not the loudest, not the most aggressive, not the one making demands or throwing words like weapons. The most dangerous person is the one in the corner, watching, listening, saying absolutely nothing, because that person has mastered something most people will spend their entire lives never understanding: the power of no response. And today, we are going to teach you exactly how to wield it. Stay until the end, because what you learn here will permanently change how every person in your life relates to you.